Good morning. How is everyone this morning? Today is day 10 of my challenge with myself, and me and little mystery here, she decided to join us today. We're going to tell you a story, since today is Friday Fun Day, although this story isn't exactly fun. Okay, on my website, www.say-yes-coaching, hello Jill.com, on the About page, I have written that I came to be a relationship coach because I don't want anyone to be in the kind of emotional agony that I have experienced in my life. The story that you are about to hear is one such bump in my life that has led me to the place that I am now. Through the fire, but now ready to help others ease the burdens on their heart. Let's get to this week's story. Scarred, but beautiful. Many years ago, I was a very angry, stressed out person. I was an at-home mother at the time. My daughter was about 18 months old, and I had my youngest son on the way, and my 9-year-old had recently come to live with us. My oldest son was very high energy, not something I had much of at that time for sure. I loved his abundant energy, but sometimes it was hard not to be grouchy when I was so worn out myself. Because of his high intelligence and gregarious spirit, he was very friendly, playful, and got into a lot of young boy type trouble, such as peeing on an electric fence to see what would happen, even though I had told him what would happen. My darling, tow-headed ball of energy tended to bubble all over other people in his excitement, and you can only imagine that his friendliness was not okay at school. I walked him to school a lot of days and then picked him up every day, and so I had daily, intimate contact with his teachers. Every day I would have to re-explain that my son needed physical activity, and there was no getting around it. His teachers wanted me to medicate him, but I said no and basically told them to deal with it. Not like that. But I didn't medicate my kid. This created some stress, especially after I had landed in the office of the principal, reporting an incident of one of the teachers excluding my son from the classroom by placing his desk outside the room. I found this isolation completely unacceptable and not very responsible either, because if my son got bored out in the hallway, it was likely they would find him pulling fire alarms or getting into mischief just to ease his boredom, curious mind, and stress. In fact, I remember one Christmas that he did just that at his step-great-aunt's house with their home security system, and while I thought it was hilarious, everybody else did not. He was a wonderful kid in my eyes, but always seemed to rub my then partner the wrong way. My partner was constantly yelling at him to stop doing whatever he was messing with, calling him names, and being rather verbally abusive. This also caused stress and many fights with the partner. Our relationship was just about over in my mind, and the way the partner treated my son was pushing me further and further away. Hang on, I gotta switch pages. Stress came in a number of other forms as well. It seemed like we were always broke, hoping we could pay the bills, which apparently we could not, as we were getting calls from collectors nonstop, and we ended up losing a van that was the only car we had in which I could place all of my children and have enough room. The partner had an old car of mine to drive to work, which meant that if I did not have a vehicle, I was trapped all night long, as my partner was working nights. What if I had an emergency with the children? What if I had to run to the store or, frankly, do anything? With my partner working nights, I was left with the management of everything in the household. All the cooking, cleaning, most of the childcare, all of the laundry, bill paying, handling issues at school, grocery shopping, household shopping, etc. The list goes on and on. It was all my responsibility. Even when my partner was home, they were either sleeping on the couch or just completely checked out. If my partner had a day off, it wasn't, hey, let's take the kids to the park. It was non-functional zombie on the couch day, and that's where they would remain. Disconnected, unwilling to participate in anything, even though, what do you want for dinner conversation? Cold, distant, withdrawn. It was miserable. We were living in a new town, so I had no family. I had no friends. I had trouble going on with the elementary school. I had a partner who seemingly hated my child. I was overburdened. I had no one to talk to. I was in a failing marriage I could not stand with a partner whom I perceived to be selfish, disconnected, and uncaring. I felt completely overwhelmed and unappreciated, sad, angry. I was dying inside. I cried every day and wondered how much more of this I could take. I asked to go to marriage counseling, but the overall message that I received from my partner was that they weren't going to be bothered with something like that. It was a knife going through my body as it dawned on me that this person I was married to was just going to watch me from that fucking couch as my spirit shattered like glass and not lift a selfish little finger and do anything to help us reconnect or pull our marriage back together. My thought in my own little bubble was they just don't care enough to do what it takes to save us. When I tried talking to my mother about it, I got a speech as to how I should be thankful that I had a partner who provided such a good life. I felt so alone and distressed. The person who should have been there for me, the only person that should have been on my side, completely invalidated me and everything that I was going through. The only person I had in the world that could have helped or offered advice turned their back to my pain, and then I was truly, absolutely alone to forge on the best I could. I was in so much emotional pain, and with no support from my mother and completely disengaged from my partner, I couldn't see how to solve my problem and staunch the emotional arterial spray that was occurring. Well, forging on my own did not work. And not long after the birth of my third and final child, my anger and frustration boiled up to unprecedented levels. I was an emotional powder keg. I would rage and scream to the point that my children must have thought me insane, and I'm surprised the neighbors did not call the police. I would disappear sometimes for a whole day because I couldn't take being in my partner's presence anymore. I would also leave for weekend trips alone. And somewhere in the insanity of my need to escape, I bought a car in Oklahoma that I found on eBay, and I flew out there to drive it home. It was during this week and a half that I drove the car home that I was able to do some thinking out there on the long road alone. And it was during this trek that I came to understand the beauty of driving through one state and then another, and the meditative peace that it gave me while doing it. I should have been a long-distance trucker, I guess. It sure would have been better than what I had going on at home. I had the beginnings of a plan formulating in my mind. I had to get out. What was left of my spirit, my very will to live, was ebbing away, screaming at me to go before I had nothing left, and I turned into a shell, lobotomized, but breathing. Finally, I left my partner out of sheer desperation and self-preservation. I had gotten to the point where my anger, frustration, and unhappiness had mushroomed to be difficult to contain. With every passing day, I was getting closer and closer to critical mass, and I knew that if I did not leave, this was not going to end well. At first, I could not understand why my partner seemed to care so little for me. And for us, that they would allow this to happen. It's not like I was ever silent about how I felt or what was happening to me. To me, it seemed like my partner was too wrapped up in their selfishness and issues to frankly give a crap that I was dying. My partner displayed a disengaged, fait accompli attitude and just watched our marriage implode and did nothing. I was so angry that I had wasted almost 11 years of my life on this person, working myself to the bone, having 2 beautiful children, and sacrificing everything for them, and yet I could not get the slightest bit of engagement to save our marriage. How did I heal? Well, I've always been a doer, someone who would find a way no matter what. I was still in the throes of a major depressive episode, but fortunately, I had enough wits to know that I needed to pull some things in my life together that could act as protective factors. I got a job, which helped me with my plan to leave. I found a new partner, which, maybe I shouldn't have done that so fast, but at the time it seemed like a good idea. Like I said, I was hurting so much that at that time when I met my next partner, the fact that someone would listen to me and wanted to help, well, that was all that it took. I decided to go back to school and finish the education that I had stopped way back 11 years ago before all of this had happened. At school, I was able to find some friends, so I had more support. My self-esteem was bolstered by the support I had, my accomplishments at school, and my new partner, and eventually another new job that I found because of furthering my education. Instrumental to my healing process was Julie, the therapist that I found not long after leaving my partner. I was so desperately depressed, I honestly believe if it had not been for my children, I might not be here today. Julie coached me through very strong but faulty, limiting beliefs I had about myself as a person, my ability to be a good partner, my ability to be a good mother, and she helped me realize that I was an extremely valuable person, even though I had not been honoring myself by not leaving the relationship sooner. It took a while, but eventually I was able to use the techniques and methods of self-discovery that Julie taught me to rewrite my story going forward and to put away the hurt and pain. I was consumed by anger, sadness, and frustration, but somehow, ironically, the events that I had withstood turned out to be a painful catalyst, the very building blocks that I needed to get out of myself and to be able to construct a self that served me and my children much more effectively. I was scuffed and scarred, but ultimately a more complete person for the suffering endured. And here's the quote of the week. There is something beautiful about all scars of whatever nature. A scar means that the hurt is over, the wound is closed, healed, and done with. And with that, my friends, I will leave you to your Friday, and I will be back on Monday with another weekly, daily something. Anyway, have a good Friday. Bye-bye.